Mira Chen first noticed the crooked right angles. It was late on a Thursday, the municipal data analytics office empty except for the hum of fluorescent lights and a cleaning robot that kept trying to suck up her shoelaces. Mira, 17, had spent 2 weeks importing Crime War spreadsheets into the statistical suite the city used. A dull summer internship, her mother called it. Unlike the invitation to the International Math Olympiad, she had just declined so she could stay near her ailing father. To keep herself awake, she ran little side experiments, cluster analyses of where unleashed dogs were most often sighted, Fourier transforms of the traffic noise readings, police contract, contentieux, compte. The violent incident file was simply the next tab in the database. When she overlaid the past year's assaults, robberies, and shootings on the gridded map of New Harbor, she expected haphazard dots. Instead, the points marched northeast in a hesitant curve, like someone trying to sketch a parabola on broken pavement. She adjusted the scale, reprojected the longitude distortion, and rotated the axes by 15 degrees. The gentle tilt of the city's colonial shoreline. The curve straightened, cleaned itself up, and settled into a shape Mira knew as well as her own signature. The graph of y equals 1/3x quest plus 42. That was impossible. Real-world crimes took place in alleyways and bars and overheated apartments, not along a neat quadratic. She told herself the alignment had to be coincidence, a visual artifact of the limited data set. But when she added incidents from the previous month, a new point landed exactly where the equation predicted the next integer value of x would deposit it. 3 blocks north of Keystone Park, 48 hours before the assault had actually occurred. Mira recalculated. She fed the last 400 incidents into the regression. The best fit curve still owned an RW of 93, the kind of textbook accuracy she coaxed out of contrived Olympiad problems, never out of human behavior. Acting on instinct, she substituted dates for the x value and let the y values stand for street numbers. The parabola wobbled but held. The violence, in other words, followed not just a place equation, but a place and time equation. She was staring at a function that predicted where and when blood would be spilled. The cleaning robot bumped her chair. Mira jerked upright, saved the script to her personal drive, and sent 2 quick emails, one to her internship supervisor, another to her father. Her father, Detective Jin Chin, called back first. "Parabolas don't commit muggings, me. Sleep. Tomorrow you'll see what's wrong with the data." "Dad, the standard error is 8 meters, she insisted. "That's the length of a city bus. Whoever's making these dots cares about the math." He coughed the deep, chest-hollow cough that had kept him on medical leave all spring. "We can walk the next coordinate tomorrow. If the city hasn't mixed addresses, we'll hand it to Major Crimes." She heard him hide a wheeze. "Get rest," he said, and hung up. Her supervisor never answered, but the next morning a bland smiley appeared beside her help desk ticket. Closed. Insufficient evidence. Mira printed the coordinate chart anyway. The next predicted point, a small rosette circled in red, landed at the corner of Mercer Avenue and 9th Street, 10 p.m. on Saturday. She had 48 hours. Lucas Ochoa found her on the rooftop basketball court after school Friday, trying to fold the paper into an origami crane so she could forget about it. Lucas was a fledgling freelance journalist who had once bribed the yearbook committee to list him as licensed troublemaker. He saw the raw panic under her calm and coaxed the story out, then snapped pictures of the chart with his phone. "If you believe this, we need buyers," he said, already texting. "Police, newsroom, city council, someone. I tried. Then we give them a demonstration they can't ignore." Mira hated how tempting that sounded. That night she overlaid satellite images of Mercer and 9th. The coordinate grazed the entry to an all-night laundromat. She pulled the last 6 predictions from her code. Each had landed within a single street light of the reported violence. She keyed the upcoming point into Street View, looked at fluorescent tiles, folding chairs, and a gum-smudged vending machine. If the pattern held, someone would be stabbed or shot in that fluorescent glare exactly at 22:03 dot. She wondered if mathematics was turning into prophecy or if a prophet was turning mathematics into a map. Saturday, 21:40. Mira and Lucas sat inside the steamy laundromat. Lucas fiddled with a body mic taped under his shirt, the audio routed to his laptop in a secure cloud. Mira had phoned emergency dispatch 15 minutes earlier, reported an anonymous threat, and been told a patrol unit would swing by when available. Journalists love proof, Lucas whispered, but cops love motive. Any guesses? She shook her head. Every quadratic had a hidden constant, but none she could pull from the incident logs. Victims ranged from retired librarians to low-level dealers, neighborhoods from gentrified gashes to working-class cul-de-sacs. The only commonality was that the dots marched along her parabola. She yanked a sheet from the printer queue in front of them. It trembled in her fingers. 22:01. Ah. A man in ripped denim pushed inside, looked around as though counting dryers, and retreated. 22:02. A silver sedan idled at the curb. The driver kept the engine running. 22:03. The laundromat's rear door splintered. Two masked figures rushed in, one brandishing a pistol, the other a machete. Their target was the teenage cashier, unsuspecting behind the detergent counter. She shrieked. The gunman vaulted the folding table. Mira's paralysis lasted half a second, long enough for Lucas to shove her behind a row of washers. He hit 911 on speed dial. The machete glinted above the counter glass. Customers scattered through dryers. Screaming. Instinct, not analysis, moved Mira. She flung a rolling cart into the gunman's knees. Lucas tackled the machete wielder's elbow. The gun discharged into ceiling tiles, raining plaster. Sirens wailed outside. Dispatch had finally routed the earlier call. The attackers fled through the broken rear door. A patrol unit barreled onto the sidewalk and cornered them in the alley. One officer went down in the scuffle, but the suspects were cuffed inside 2 minutes. Mira slipped through the throng and knelt beside the trembling cashier. No one was dead this time, yet a primal certainty spiked through her. The pattern was just beginning. Major Crimes debriefed her until dawn. The detective assigned Rodriguez, grizzled, skeptical, flipped through her printouts. So, you're telling me these mooks attacked a random laundromat because of algebra? Not algebra, Mira corrected. Geometry imposed on geography. Rodriguez blinked. Her father intervened, saying, "The math is the lead. Follow it." His badge still hung on sick leave, but his voice carried weight. Rodriguez took the files grudgingly and promised to correlate. Lucas published a midnight story anyway. Teen Genius links attacks as to citywide Equalnet. It netted 1,000 reposts before dawn and earned a curt email from Rodriguez reminding him to respect the integrity of ongoing investigation. By afternoon, Mira was famous enough to sabotage her own research. Reporters camped on her stoop. Conspiracy forums dissected grainy screenshots of her scatterplots, arguing whether she served Big Brother or the Illuminati. The next data drop revealed itself through noise. 2 incidents. A mugging and a carjacking had already matched new points beyond the laundromat. The curve held. When Mira extended the function another 10 units forward, the graph pierced the civic heart of New Harbor City Hall Plaza on July 4, a week away. She tasted metal on her tongue. Fireworks, crowds, national birthday. If the parabola's architect wanted shock value, nothing beat detonation in front of television cameras. She went to check on her father, only to find his inhaler empty and her eyes full of tears she refused to name. "And I'm fine, me," he rasped. "Just bring me the math. We'll finish it together." They commandeered the kitchen table. Coffee rings spread like satellite craters around printouts. Mira fed time derivatives into a slider tool. The second derivative of the place function revealed an unexpected consistency. The intervals tightened according to a factor of 0.86. Exactly the ratio of one Fibonacci number to the next. Overlay the spiral on the city, rotate 90 degrees, and the violent incidents hopped from curve to curve like beads on a string. Someone had laced a quadratic with Fibonacci seeds. The elegance chilled her more deeply than the violence did. "Who thinks that way?" she asked. Her father looked at his ceiling water stains. "Once, maybe I would have said nobody. Then I read the Unabomber's manifesto." Lucas worked his networks. A professor at the state university recognized the pattern, or parts of it. "It resembles Ezra Caro's lecture from '05, she said over a jittery Zoom call. Caro argued you could inscribe any ideologic message on a city by staging events whose coordinates formed equations, turning urban space into mathematical text. He called it geometry of terror. Caro had been a celebrated number theorist until the dean found pipe bomb schematics in his faculty office. He served 9 years, was released 3 months ago, and had vanished from probation oversight 2 weeks later. Mira Googled his parole photo. Steel-rimmed spectacles, one lazy eyelid, thin smile that did not touch the cheeks. She added Caro's last known address to her scatter plot. It sat almost perfectly on the line of best fit, just an early origin side point like the seed value of a sequence. Rodriguez could no longer ignore the math. Federal agencies folded in. The Joint Terrorism Task Force installed cameras along what analysts now dubbed the Caro curve. Surveillance, however, did not break the equation. 2 more assaults erupted at precisely plotted coordinates despite plainclothes units lurking only yards away. Caro's accomplices used burners, masks, and crowds as camouflage. With 4 days left until July 4, the city declared a grid alert, postponing all outdoor festivals. The mayor, under pressure, considered canceling the fireworks entirely. Commentators argued she was letting an abstraction hold the city hostage. Mira tuned out the pundits and drilled into the math. She suspected a hidden layer, a control code that told Caro's recruits which coordinate came next. Comment threads spoke of cryptic graffiti near each crime scene, a spray-painted capital R followed by a 4-digit number. She visited the laundromat. The police tapes still fluttered. Behind a dinted dryer, she found what detectives had missed. R1371. On a hunch, she computed the 1371st prime 11,111. Convert that to base 26, map it onto letters, and you obtained KKK. Hardly subtle. But when she did the same for graffiti recorded at other scenes, the letters spelled a Latin sentence. R1371 equals reductio fiat. Reduce it, make it happen. But there was more. The graffiti numbers formed a simple recurrence relation. Each was the sum of the previous 2 prime indices. A Fibonacci again, but in primes. Caro hadn't encoded instructions. He'd built a counting system. Anyone with the seed values could calculate the next graffiti tag, look up the corresponding coordinate on a printed list, and strike on schedule witut direct contact. Decentralized terror by recursive arithmetic. Mira reconstructed the sequence forward. The tag for July 4 translated to prime index 1,597. The 1,597th prime was 12,979. In base 26, that spelled Mira. Her stomach iced over. She rechecked the math. No error. Caro had woven her name into the pattern. Lucas turned white when she told him. "You're the variable that proves his theorem." "Or the proof that breaks it," she replied. She drafted a report for the task force. Rodriguez read it, grim. "We need Caro by Tuesday." They weren't close. His digital trails routed through Tor nodes, satellite links, and throwaway laptops left in public libraries. But mathematics was intimate. It carried fingerprint. Mira re-examined the curve's coefficients. The quadratic term 1/3 puzzled her. Too neat, too academic. She compared it to Caro's doctoral thesis. He had favored the fraction precisely 1/3 in every example, arguing that nature itself divided motion in thirds. Sunrise to sunset, liquid to vapor, birth to decay. It was the kind of esoteric repetition only a mathematician would consider a signature. "Where would a man obsessed with thirds hide?" her father asked between coughs. "In a coordinate whose x and y are both divisible by 3, she said automatically. The city had thousands, but she limited the search to vacant warehouses large enough to assemble explosives. One address repeated in fire department records. Old Waverly Clockworks, condemned, 333 Dock Street. Lucas, never content without adventure, drove them there the next dawn. The warehouse crouched like a fossilized beast beside the river. A broken clock tower stuck out of its roof, frozen at 4 o'clock. Mira used bolt cutters. They stepped into dust the color of throat ash. Soap-smelling chemicals and ammonium tang rode the air. Caro's operations sprawled across folding tables. Wires, timers, fertilizer sacks, circuit diagrams annotated with Greek symbols. The centerpiece was a map of New Harbor, impaled by thumbtacks along the parabola. City Hall Plaza bore a tack whose color was blood red. Then, her eye snagged on a footlocker of PVC pipes labeled factorial notation. 5, 7, 11. Beside it lay a notepad. Wire lengths corresponded digit sums. Only predicted variable left. Interference equals Chen? Adjust? She had caused him to adapt his model. Footsteps above. Caro descended the iron stair, spectacles glinting. "Miss Chen," he greeted, as if welcoming her to afternoon tea. "You found the derivative function?" Lucas lifted his phone to stream live. Caro smiled. "Bright boy. Won't help." His hand moved under his coat. Mira hurled a stapler. Lucas dove. The gunshot stung Mira's ear. She ripped a chemical jug from the shelf and flung it, breaking lights, drenching the floor in slick ammonia. Caro slipped. Lucas tackled. The gun clattered. Mira kicked it away, heart battering. Sirens converged. Her father had insisted she keep her phone's GPS broadcasting. Caro hissed words only she could parse. "Numbers are the purest scripture. You silence their revelation." She answered with the simplest counterproof. She tore the red tack from City Hall and snapped the map in half. Federal agents disarmed the bombs. They confirmed Caro had intended simultaneous charges across the plaza so that, when plotted afterward, the explosion sites would complete a cardioid overlay perfectly, complementing the parabola, a love letter to terror written in polar coordinates. Mira gave her statement, then sat on the curb while her father's ambulance crew fussed over his oxygen saturation. He waved them off and motioned her close. "Remember what you said when you solved your first cubic?" he whispered. "Every polynomial yields eventually. So do people." She squeezed his hand. Lucas joined them, holding 2 coffees. "City cancels fireworks," he said, "but apparently we'll get a laser show shaped like a big broken equation. They're calling it resilience." "How many words?" Mira asked automatically. 800, due in an hour. My editor wants the prodigy angle. "Give them someone ordinary instead," she said, "someone who saw a pattern and refused to let it finish." July 4 came anyway. Instead of fireworks, blue spotlights rose over New Harbor, tracing the path of the aborted parabola up the night sky. At each coordinate where violence had occurred, a volunteer led a paper lantern. The curve glowed, yes, but its final point, City Hall, stayed dark, an intentional break in the line. And Mira watched from her apartment roof. The lanterns trembled, wavered, and drifted free of mathematical perfection. Human hands could not hold them still, and that imperfection was exquisite. She reopened her laptop, pulled up the historical data, and added one last coordinate: 0, tonight. The place where nothing terrible happened because numbers met their match in people determined to change them. The elegant curve warped into something messy, unsolved, alive. Only then did she allow herself to breathe, knowing that equations predict, but choices define.